All right, so in this video, I wanted to touch on something that's come up recently with a few of my students. And basically that is the idea that their music, right? Their ideas, their musical ideas are somehow in jeopardy of being stolen, plagiarized, especially when they're not completed yet. So someone has like an idea, they've written a few bits and pieces here and there, might have lyrics, might not, whatever, right? They've jotted down a few ideas, they've patched together some kind of a song, a rough version of it, and they want to play it for someone. They want to sort of get some feedback on the direction of the song. Am I going the right way? Is this, what do you think? Does it sound like anything you know? That type of thing. And they're concerned that those ideas, by sharing them, someone's going to take them and run with them and write their own song. Okay, especially when they're sharing them in Facebook groups or any kind of a group where you're trying to get some feedback. All right, and I gotta say, look, this is the advice I tell them, and I thought I'd do a video because it's something that I've come across as well on a personal level back in the day. I don't worry about it anymore, but back in the day I did. And especially when you feel like you've come across an amazing idea, the last thing you want is to share it with a fellow musician that's going to take it, and because they know that it's still in its infancy, that they can take it and just use it and write their own song. So what I tell them and what I'd like to share with you is not to worry about it. Okay? Don't worry about it, because the chances of that happening are very, very slim. Okay, now the downside, of course, would be if they took your idea and they wrote the song or finished the song, as it were, and then they went on and had a huge hit and they were a big star, right? And they stole the limelight from you. Okay, now is that possible? Yeah, for sure. Okay, everything is possible, all right? But the chances of that happening are like slim to none. All right, because the reason is, if they're an unknown and you're an unknown, right? And the song, if the song is that great or the idea is that great, it's not impossible that they would take it, write it, produce it, and then somehow release it and it blows up. But personally, I've never heard of such a thing happening. Okay, now a famous person, somebody already established, listening to a song, right? Or getting an idea from somewhere and then taking it and releasing something and then it blows up. Yeah, that does happen. Okay, and there have been plagiarism cases over the years, even some pretty recent. I think Ed Sheeran was the most recent one with a Body of You, or that big hit that he had, The Shape of You. Okay, Shape of You, right? So that song, there was a plagiarism case against it. He won, right? So it wasn't plagiarism, basically. Okay, but for that kind of thing to happen, where a famous, somebody that's already established, taking an idea from another artist, okay, and then taking it and changing it a bit and incorporating it and basically plagiarizing but not plagiarizing type of thing, it's a gray area, right? Plagiarism cases are really, okay, they can go either way. But for that to happen, it does happen. But for it to happen with an unknown, somebody unknown that you're just mucking around, first of all, you probably wouldn't have access to someone like that. They would never hear your idea to begin with, right? So, but we have these worries, like a lot of the students I have worry about that. Because I try to encourage them to share ideas with each other, and if it's something they can both contribute in a positive way to a song, and let's say it was your idea to begin with, and then the next guy comes in and says, hey, try this, and you love it, well, that's a co-write. That's a co-write. If you don't think the idea is worth it, don't worry about it. Just say, look, you know what, thank you for that, but nah, I'm not going to use that. Right? But that is, of course, the risk of putting yourself out there. All right? I've known people in the past that never released anything, okay, because they were worried that it's going to get stolen because they don't have a name for themselves. And so they're like, you know what, I'm going to pitch it to publishers, I'm going to pitch it to producers, I'm going to pitch it to record companies, but I don't want to go out there and play it too much, you know, because I'm worried someone's going to take it and steal it and release it because it's that good. Now, the truth of the matter is, more often than not, the song is not that good, okay? We tend to be biased with our own music, of course, all right? But second of all, that just doesn't happen. It just does not really happen, okay? So just don't worry about it too much, you know? Write your song, play it for people. Whoever wants to listen to it, don't worry, you know. And look, even if the worst case scenario now, right? Let's say that actually happened. You play it for someone, they take it, and it blows up, and it becomes this huge hit. Well, that's why we have courts, you know. So you can always sue somebody if that were to happen. But believe me, in all the years that I've been doing this, decades, I've been doing this and following very closely the music industry, the news, plagiarism cases, everything, okay? That's a big part of my life, music. So that, I can't even think of a case where that has happened legitimately. The Ed Sheeran case was a similar thing because it was somebody that was an unknown, basically an unknown person, okay? That says that somehow Ed Sheeran got, you know, a hold of his song or heard it somehow. He might have played it for him at some point. I don't remember the details of the case, but it was thrown out. You know, it was thrown out because in a plagiarism case, you have to prove two things, right? First of all, you have to prove that the person had access to the song, right? And that's why it's so difficult when you're an unknown, when you haven't established yourself. Well, how is the guy going to have access to it? Well, if you pitched the song to them, you know, if you pitched it to their publisher or their producer or, you know, their record company or something like that, okay, you can establish some kind of evidence there if you can prove that they actually opened the package or opened the file and actually listened to the song. A lot of them don't anymore for this very reason, okay? They don't accept what they call unsolicited material for this very reason, because they open themselves up to plagiarism cases because you can establish that, hey, you heard the song. And here's the evidence of that. So that's the one part of it. You have to establish that the person had access to it, that could actually listen to it. The other part of a plagiarism case that you have to prove, of course, is that the songs are similar enough, you know, that they're very close, okay? What does that mean? Well, you know, like in a criminal case, you have to establish guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, right? So if there's any doubt whatsoever, a person walks free. Criminal cases. But in civil cases, you don't, okay? And this is what, when we're talking about plagiarism cases, it's a civil trial, okay? It's not a criminal trial, it's civil. In a civil case, there has to be what they call a preponderance of evidence. A preponderance of evidence means that it's more likely than not. So it's like 51% you have to prove, okay? So it's you don't need much. It has to be close enough, and that's it. You win. Okay, so, but you have to establish those two things, that the person had access and that the person, and that the two songs are close enough. And that is, you know, up in the air. There have been cases that were awarded money because they were found to have violated the copyright of another song where, you know, that... You know, you listen to those two songs and you wonder, you know, what were they listening to? You know, so, but that's the way it goes, you know, it's just that preponderance of evidence. So it's got to be sort of similar. And it depends on the jury, when there is one, and it depends on the musicologist that they call in for these cases, and the judge and all that. So it's really, but look, don't worry about all that. The only thing you need to worry about as a songwriter is writing the best possible song you can write. And then if you want to get that feedback, and we all need it, okay, just find a few people that you trust and that you know, and that you, more importantly, trust their judgment, and that they're going to be honest with you. Okay, that's even more important than trusting them if they're going to, you know, steal your song. Okay, you want to get good, honest feedback from people, and that I would say is really valuable. And don't worry about it. Okay, it's not something to lose sleep over. Okay, so I hope that helps you guys out. That's the advice I give to my students, and the advice I'm giving to anyone here that has that question is just write and play in front of as many people as you can, as possible. But at the end of the day, also protect your song. Okay, it doesn't hurt to do that. So just protect it. You need to establish the date of creation, okay, in a court of law, if it ever comes to that. All right, the Library of Congress is a great way to do it. Courts recognize the Library of Congress to lodge your copyrights. Okay, so you just send your lyrics and your music over there. They lodge it, the date and everything. You pay a fee, and that's it. You're done. You know, and if it ever comes to a court case, at least you have that protection. You know, but don't go around worrying about that. All right? Anyway, I hope that helps you guys out. Until next time, take care.